Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Uncovering the Hidden Agendas, a video series dedicated to showing you all how Satan has put his hand of influence on just about every aspect of society. So today's topic is sports. There are plenty of hidden agendas in sports and sports leagues and even the Olympics, which we might get to in another episode. But just what is happening behind the scenes in the world of sports? Let's start with this image right here. Of course, you know ESPN to be one of the leading sports channels on TV. This is one of their less common logos. Does this look familiar? It looks a lot like the Google Chrome logo. And it's forming 3 sixes. So let's check out a couple articles and see what people have to say about the true motives of professional sports. When you go to a Super Bowl party, an excuse for gluttony. How could we ever forget lust with the cheerleaders? Wrath, violence, rage, whatever you call it, the entire sport is predicated on it. Sloth. This guy took the trouble to get out of his couch and go to the arena and sit there instead. How many couch potatoes watch the NFL? Promoting alcoholism and drug abuse using lust. Quote from Madonna, "Oh my, I'm so nervous you have no idea. First of all, it's the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl is kind of like the Holy of Holies in America, right? So here I am, I'm going to come into the halfway between the church experience and I'm going to have to deliver a sermon that's going to have to be very impactful." She continues, right? I have to put on the greatest show on earth in the middle of the greatest show on earth. I have 8 minutes to set it up and 7 minutes to take it down and 12 minutes to put on the greatest show on earth. That's a lot of pressure. For some odd reason, Madonna, one of many Super Bowl performers that we've had, is making a strange analogy between the Super Bowl halftime show and church, worship, sermons, preaching. And as we've seen earlier in this series, there's a lot of satanic symbolism going on in Super Bowl halftime shows. So our ideas of church, not exactly the same. Here's a photo from her Super Bowl performance. Of course, that famous Baphomet pose. It's not just the NFL. Yes, it is at international sporting events such as the World Cup, Champions League, and Olympics that even warring nations and sharply divided faiths temporarily put aside their differences and relish the excitement of friendly competition against one another. All this sounds fine and dandy, but is it? Here's one-eye symbolism at the 2012 Olympics. As with anything in the world of media, not everything is always as it seems. On the surface, sports may seem like a powerful force for good. If nothing else, the temporary reprieve it provides is welcome. I mean, who would not mind seeing erstwhile foes who would not hesitate blowing each other to smithereens momentarily bury the hatchet? But look a little deeper and you will discover that sport is one of the most effective tools for the Illuminati to drive their agenda for global domination. And this is achieved in a number of ways. Speed up the rat race. You work hard the entire week, and in between setting aside time for your family, you are probably attending evening classes to advance your career. You hardly have time to sit down and reflect on life. And even when you do seem to have that weekend or evening free to reevaluate your life's direction and progress, your time is incredibly limited. Now throw in some beer and that must-watch match involving your favorite NFL team, and your days are pretty much packed or wasted. What is all this driving at? You hardly have time to assess your own life. Sure, you could always skip watching the match and thus stop swimming in the depravity around it, but that will make you the odd one out and a laughingstock back at the office or in your circle of friends the following day. Ever wondered why there's so much media hype around even some of the most mundane of matches? This posturing of matches, almost as a matter of life and death, develops a mass hysteria that makes anyone not joining in the fun look like a killjoy. And that goes beyond sports. That applies to so many other things as well. Movies, TV, music, you name it. An epidemic of ignorance. As long as the Illuminati can keep the masses overly occupied with other things, they can deflect any attention their coordinated actions in the national and international stage would otherwise attract. It is often said that the American population is on average the single most ignorant nation in the developed world, for example, on matters pertaining to countries outside the U.S. This is often said in a humorous fashion, but the repercussions are far more serious. Sadly, it is in the U.S. that you would come across a substantial number of educated adults who have no clue on basic facts, such as who is the current Prime Minister of Great Britain, whether the official UK currency is the sterling pound or euro, or whether Africa is a single country or a group of distinct nations. To be fair, such dumbing down of society is no longer unique to the US. Have you ever wondered why that is so? It is because there is a direct correlation between the level of consumerism. The US is the world's #1 consumerist nation, and with a massive sports fan base spanning the NFL, NHL, and NBA, and the level of ignorance of international affairs. Who cares about politics? My favorite team's star player is the gossip section. That's more important. Note that this same exact technique of dumbing down the masses is not necessarily used in every country. The Illuminati are sophisticated enough to apply the appropriate strategy for the appropriate cultures, knowing which ones will work best for which country. For the US, sports help keep a large part of the country ignorant. For other developed and developing nations, using a combination of sports, celebrity gossip, political drama, and endless local crises are bound to keep the masses from catching wind of the designs of the one world cabal. And finally, weaken society's cultural and religious beliefs. For thousands of years, mankind has tried to use religious and political beliefs to chart a common path that's acceptable to all. As we all know, this has failed miserably. Now here comes sport, a force that can draw people of faiths and persuasions into celebrating a common and rather pointless goal. Humans are being raised and essentially thoroughbred to becoming future sporting athletes. Is it any wonder certain locations have a larger percentage of successful athletes? The state of affairs is slowly persuading the masses subconscious into believing that it is possible for persons of different backgrounds to come together behind a cause and pursue a common destiny. That despite the many political and religious conflicts in the world today, sports gives us hope that global cohesion, camaraderie, and near unanimity are all possible. This makes it a far more successful attempt by the Illuminati to subconsciously allow the world to accept the eventual one world government, the NWO, the New World Order. It's probably the most important sentence I've said in this entire article. And then there are the utterances of top athletes, statements that would pass for blasphemy in many major faiths. Take the case of the World Wrestling Entertainment. Yes, there is a lot of play acting, but athletes must exert considerable effort, and injuries are not uncommon, which is why I would still view this as a sport. You just have to watch the first 15 minutes of Monday Night Raw, and your senses will be assaulted by direct and indirect blasphemy. From wrestlers referring to themselves as greater than God, to satanic symbolism as portrayed by some of the more popular wrestlers, such as The Undertaker. WWE is also important because the scripted nature of this spectacle is another way the elite or Illuminati conditions the population. By allowing them to watch a sport that is scripted, they get them accustomed to the scripted nature of global politics. Wow. Yeah, once I started to see how scripted and fixed and rigged sports were, that's what made me turn off sports completely in my life. But now we're starting to see that it's more than just rigging. Gradually conditioning humanity for a one world government. This has been mentioned before, but it needs to be repeated. Sports provide a taste of such cross-cutting unanimity that creates a subconscious longing to have similar harmony in every sphere of life. Remember, the Illuminati would like to create a one-world government that runs everything. The idea here is to ensure that anyone who voices opposition to such a promise of harmony is painted as a weird extremist oddball that's a danger to society as a whole. This kind of consensus from the masses is crucial, as it allows the elite cabal to viciously clamp down on resistance without drawing uproar from the larger world populace. In fact, the world populace will do the work for them. Why do they need to even lift a finger? My goodness. Whew. All right, let's check out another article. In other words, the rise of sports fanatics and the skyrocketing revenues of sports entertainment are happening on purpose. The same elite group, it seems, are profiting off the sports leagues they've created, while at the same time creating a mass hysteria whereby Americans are more interested in watching sports than they are interested in stopping or even recognizing the hijacking of America. The fact that the sports league logos look very much the same is indicative that the same elite group is behind them. Just look at the MLB and NBA logos. There's no reason why the two logos of these two leagues should look the same, but they do. The people and entities who own the MLB league are certainly not the same people and entities who own the NBA league, at least not on the surface. But could it be possible that deep down, hidden from our view, the same elite are behind them, like the blood that unites them? It should be noted that the MLB and NBA logo design, an athlete in white silhouette flanked by red and blue colors, is based on an ancient drawing, and it has a powerful effect on the human psyche. Both logos share the same patriotic red, white, and blue colors, depict an athlete in motion and in white silhouette flanked by red and blue, have four rounded edges instead of pointed corners, and show action or movement. There is an ancient symbol that the MLB and NBA logos mimic, and we've talked about this. It's called the Taijitu, popularly known as the yin-yang symbol. Few Americans realize how powerful this icon really is, or what this ancient Chinese symbol stands for. The basic idea here is that the universe and everything inside it is made of equal and opposing energies and forces. Now here's where it gets a bit fishy. Since its adoption, the basic model of an athlete or equipment used for the sport in silhouette flanked by red and blue has been incorporated into the logos of countless leagues and associations. Here are some examples: the WNBA, American Hockey League, National Lacrosse League, Indy Racing League, Major League Gaming, National Women's Soccer League, Minor League Baseball, National Pro Fast Pitch, Major Indoor Soccer League, North American Boxing Council, Grand Am Road Racing. There is no reason why all of these logos should follow the same basic concept, but they do. There is no official central agency that oversees all of America's sports leagues or anything like that. Not a governmental office that oversees American sports or anything of the kind. Are these similar sports logos then just coincidence, or is there a subversive reason behind it? Is there some type of long-term strategy happening here that we are not aware of? Are these logos being branded in the minds of the masses so that sports entertainment in general grows and grows, encompassing a greater role in the American society? Continuing with the yin-yang symbolism, the sports leagues themselves are often divided into a yin-yang type drama. In MLB, this takes the form of the American League versus National League drama. The winner of each league faces each other in the World Series. The symbol for interleague competition certainly evokes the yin-yang symbol, red versus blue, as we've talked about since the beginning. The NFL has a similar setup. The American Football Conference, or AFC, is one of the two conferences of the NFL. This conference and its counterpart, the NFC, currently contain 16 teams each, making up the 32 teams of the NFL. The teams within each conference battle, and the winner of each conference battle it out in the Super Bowl, a corporate spectacle, red versus blue again. So all that to say this: elite owners of America are slowly but surely enslaving the American people, and they seem to be doing this in part by mastering the art of diversion, with sports entertainment being their key diversionary tactic. The sudden and dramatic rise of sports entertainment during the past several decades seems to be a carefully scripted plot, skillfully crafted by the ruling elite, aimed at engaging Americans to focus their attention elsewhere and diminish their interest and understanding of the ills that are plaguing American society. The fact that the logos of the major sports leagues all use similar patterns and that this pattern is based on an ancient symbolism may be indicative that sports entertainment is really a large-scale mass control project, and that the same crooked elite are really behind all the sports franchises, the same elite that have been actively taking over the world, such as banks, mass media, big pharma, and big oil. So all that to say, sports are an agenda of the elites, of the New World Order, of the Illuminati. While we're passively watching, a 2-3 hour long game, it's a distraction from the Illuminati truly implementing their ideals and their takeover of this nation and of this world. So we've talked some about the Super Bowl, and we saw examples of Super Bowl satanic symbolism in episode number 1. Here is another example from Katy Perry's performance.
Totally made. And as far as this whole Illuminati business, you guys, okay, I feel like this is like a little bit of a stretch, but just to fill you guys in, here's some of the reasons behind the argument. The outfit she wore in the opening is a flame pattern, which people are saying is to honor the ruler of the underworld. There are comparisons being drawn between Katy's line-riding opener and the ancient Egyptian goddess Isis. The checkerboard during her performance is the mosaic design closely linked to the Freemason secret society and the use of pyramids, triangles, and circles. And not just those, but you guys, there are a ton of other comparisons being made, but I'm going to go ahead and let the YouTube experts explain the rest.
Right off the bat, the halftime show starts with Katy Perry on the back of this giant lion. Now, of course, if you know anything about sex kitten programming, which is correlated to MK Ultra and is one of the tactics that the Illuminati uses in order to get these celebrities to submit to their authority, we can see this represented. This is a subliminal depiction of the book of Revelation. It is showing the New World Order, the emerging of the end of the world. And you can see Katy Perry submitting to his authority and dropping to her knees. In addition to that, count the number of flames behind him. Yep, there's 6 of them. And as I'm sure many of you know, 6, of course, has deep and dark associations to the Antichrist.
Yep, there you have it. So as soon as I saw that line, let me pull up that image again. I thought of the scripture that said, "Behold, the devil prowls around seeking whom he may devour," right? And yes, that may be the overall theme of this, but yeah, she's depicting a goddess. They talked about Isis earlier. I also saw similarities to this image of Ishtar, also known as Inanna, another deity. So there are yet more examples of how Super Bowl halftime show is more than just entertainment. It is a literal form of satanic worship. So let us proceed on and see more of the hidden agendas of sports and sports leagues. Alright, let's start with the NBA. Of course, we've seen the yin-yang symbolism already in the logo. Their jerseys, they are now sponsored by Nike. You see the Nike swoosh, and as we've talked about, Nike is the name of a goddess. Before that, their jerseys were sponsored by Adidas, and their logo has strong similarities to the pyramid, which is a very common symbol in elite and Illuminati circles. Check this out. So, after the end of the regular season, you have the playoffs, right? All rounds are best of 7 series. Series are played in the 2-2-1-1-1 format, meaning the team with home court advantage hosts games 1, 2, 5, and 7, while their opponent hosts games 3, 4, and 6, with games 5, 6, and 7 being played if needed. All right, so best of 7, right? So here's an example of what that looks like. I chose this playoff bracket specifically because there are a lot of matches that ended 4-1. In other words, 4 wins for the winning team and just 1 win for the team that lost. It seems to be the case that a lot of these matches, especially in the NBA, could have been won in 4 games. Like, it's clear that one team is better than the other. But maybe some of that scripting, that rigging going on, forcing a 5th game just to, bring more money in, bring more revenue. So let's say after 4 games, the score is 3-1, and the winning team needs 1 more game, of course, to move on to the next round. 3-1. That happens quite a bit. You see it in the Houston, Utah series, Portland, Oklahoma City, Toronto, Orlando, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Boston. So 3-1. I researched this a little bit. There's actually a pretty striking agenda behind it. And even the number 31, like if a team has a 31-point lead, I believe it has a deeper symbolism. So let's get a little deep. So in the Hebrew alphabet, the 6th letter is Vav, which has, of course, a numerical value of 6. And here on the right is what the symbol for Vav is. So taking a look at that symbol, it kind of looks like a 1, right? So if you're up 3-1, or having a 31-point lead, 3-1-point lead, it's kind of like saying Vav, 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 6, 6, 6. So you see here in this female boxing match sponsored by Monster Energy, as you see in the ring, they use that similar symbol in their logo. And it's literally Vav, 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 or 6, 6, 6. LeBron James, of course, one of the top NBA players in today's game. Check out that tattoo on his chest. Kind of looks like a lion with wings on it. I did some research on it, and it has a very close symbolism to the Boule, or the Sigma Pi Phi fraternity. Let's check out what the Boule are all about. The Boule is the black elite of the establishment. The Boule is also called the Sigma Pi Phi fraternity. Many of its founders were Prince Hall Freemasons or have Masonic affiliations. The Boule posed as freedom fighters during the Civil Rights era, but they promote submission unto the elite. The Boule work with the same factions that promote the New World Order. So that's one example of a top NBA player being connected to a secret society. I'm sure there are many more. And in the NBA, we have a number of players with nicknames. Here are just a few examples. I want to draw attention to Chris Paul's nickname, the Point God. And look at this. This is an article published by the NBA. Like, they're literally promoting this higher self, this pagan principle on their official website. Chris Paul, the Point God who refuses to slow down. It's ridiculous. And then, of course, right under the NBA, you have what was formerly known as the NBA D-League, or the Developmental League. They changed their name in 2017 to the NBA G-League. And of course, it looks like the G is representing Gatorade, right? But G, in general, what else does that sound like? The Masonic logo. All right, moving on to the NFL. So we've seen since episode 1 some examples of satanic symbolism, pagan symbolism, Illuminati symbolism in halftime shows. What else does the NFL promote? Let's take a look at their logo, for example, the evolution of their logo. Let's pay close attention to this logo from 1960. Kind of looks like a bird cage or a prison, right? And we've seen before the symbolism of this prison image, symbol of imprisonment, mind control. We've been talking about this entire time, being a mental slave to the elite and the Illuminati. I'm sure most of us are familiar with this hand sign. When a player crosses the goal line in a football game, the ref raises his hands and says, touchdown. But check this out. Very close resemblance to this circled hand sign on the right. This is a Masonic gesture. And you can even make the case that the goalposts in football games resemble this Masonic gesture. Let's go back to touchdowns for a minute. Of course, when someone crosses the goal line, that gives them 6 points, and then if they kick an extra point, they get 7 points. But what's the symbolism of the number 7? Of course, in Scripture, it symbolizes completion or perfection, but as we'll see throughout this series, Satan likes to imitate or mimic the things of God because he's jealous of them. In Zoroastrianism, the 7th month of the year is dedicated to the god Mithra, and worship of Mithra involves 7 gates and 7 altars. Several Masonic lodges to this day have 7 or 14 steps. All right. You be the judge of which of these bullet points the number 7 is symbolizing in football. And check this out. This is Demario Davis. A couple years ago, he wore a Man of God headband, and the NFL fined him. Fined roughly $7,000 by the NFL for wearing a headband with Man of God written across it during a Week 3 matchup against the Seahawks. And so this fine is because of the NFL having a rule against players wearing personal messages during games. Let's see some of the history behind this fine. The league fines players and coaches for several things, including uniform violations. According to the league's fine schedule, personal messages on uniforms are subject to fines. The minimum fine for a first offense is $7,017, while the minimum fine for a second offense is $14,037. One of the first known headband fines came in 1985 when former Chicago Bears quarterback Jim McMahon wore an Adidas headband and was fined $5,000 due to rules at the time that required players to cover up logos. The next week, McMahon, in an effort to mock then-Commissioner Pete Rozelle, wore a headband with Rozelle's name on it. This is far from the first time a player has been fined for personal messages either. Former Pittsburgh Steelers defensive end Cameron Hayward was fined upwards of $25,000 for multiple eye black messages honoring his late father in 2015. And in 2016, the NFL fined Steelers running back DeAngelo Williams $5,787 for writing "Find the Cure" on his eye black because his mother at the time was dealing with breast cancer. Another early example came in 2004 when former Arizona Cardinals and Denver Broncos quarterback Jake Plummer was initially fined for wearing the helmet decal honoring Pat Tillman for 1 extra week. The fine was withdrawn later. All right, so we see they're not just fining for, Christian messages, but what's wrong with these messages? Like breast cancer awareness, honoring a late relative, there's nothing offensive about any of these headbands. So I say just take out the rule altogether. But before y'all get rid of that rule, let me see a NFL player walk onto the field with a satanic headband. And let's see if y'all find him. All right, shoot. Moving on to the MLS, and more specifically, one of their teams, the New York Red Bulls. This happened at one of their previous games. There were 5 minutes and 55 seconds left in this quarter, and they used upside down backwards twos. Any idea why they would do that? All right, so we've studied Hebrew alphabet a little bit. Now we're going to look at Greek alphabet. All right, so alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta. Stop. Zeta, 6th letter of the alphabet. Kind of looks like an upside down backwards 2, right? So we go back to the scoreboard. upside down backwards 2. And if you flip it a little bit, looks exactly like zeta, the 6th letter of the alphabet. Printed 3 times, 666. Moving on to the MLB. So a long tradition in baseball is something called the 7th inning stretch. It takes place between the halves of the 7th inning of a game. Fans generally stand up and stretch out their arms and legs and sometimes walk around. It is a popular time to get a late game snack or an alcoholic beverage, as alcohol sales often cease after the last out of the 7th inning. The stretch also serves as a short break for the players. Most ballparks in professional baseball mark this point of the game by playing the crowd sing-along song, "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." If a game goes into a 5th extra inning, a similar 14th inning stretch is celebrated, as well as in theory a possible 21st inning stretch or even 28th inning stretch if the game goes that long. But let's focus on "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" for a second, and the fact that it's in the 7th inning of all the possible innings. The name Baal, although pronounced as Baal by many Americans, is more accurately spoken as Baal. All the writings of Greek historians show that Melkart of Tyre, known in Corinth as Melikertis, in whose honor the Isthmic Games were celebrated from the 6th century BC, was known in Olympia as Heracles, founder of the Olympic Games in honor of Baal or Zeus. So could it be possible that in the 7th inning stretch, 7 being a very common and highly embraced number in Masonic circles, that instead of singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," B-A-L-L, they're singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," B-A-A-L. Because of all the innings, they chose the 7th. I'll let y'all be the judge of that. The NHL. I found a couple instances of how they literally joke around with Satan and Satan's name. Here's a tweet from Greg Wyshynski, American sports writer, literally tweeting, "Dear Satan, blah 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 blah, yours in Hellfire Chaos, Greg." A literal prayer to Satan, embraced by this professional hockey league. And check this out. One of the former players in the NHL, his name was Miroslav Shatan. He's Slovak, so the S is pronounced as sh, but from first glance it looks like Satan, right? So, of course, he's been the butt of jokes because Shatan's name so closely resembles in English that of Satan. Many devil-related jokes have been made at his expense. During his career, many sports data sites, including Fox Sports, Sports Illustrated, ESPN, and Yahoo, used the number 666 in the URL of Satan's page. A popular April Fool's joke had Shatan traded to the New Jersey Devils and been made captain of his new team, making Shatan the leader of the Devils. After Shatan announced his retirement in 2014, the Yahoo headline read, "Shatan be gone." So for an entire league to just normalize jokes about Satan, just like that video earlier of that girl trying to, normalize what Katy Perry was doing in that halftime show. This stuff shouldn't be normalized. It's not funny. It's not a joke. But sadly, this is the reality. World Championship Wrestling. This is one of the subordinates of the professional wrestling world. But check this out. World Championship Wrestling has a wrestling team literally called New World Order. And here are some of its members. The New World Order, commonly abbreviated as NWO, is a famous professional wrestling stable, which is a wrestling term meaning team, that originally consisted of Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. The stable originated in World Championship Wrestling, WCW, with the gimmick of a group of unsanctioned wrestlers aiming to take over, sound familiar? and control WCW in the manner of a street gang. And they have quite a few names if you check out the Wikipedia article, and one of them is literally New World Order Elite. So it's no secret the agenda behind this little wrestling team. In 1997, the NWO had their own pay-per-view called Sold Out. So of course the name of this show being a pun on the phrase sold out, but could it possibly mean that everyone in this wrestling team sold their soul? And finally, let's look at the WNBA. More specifically, former star Candice Wiggins. Straight WNBA star, lesbian culture broke my spirit. Candice Wiggins was a college star at Stanford, the third pick of the 2008 WNBA draft and a 2011 champion. And at the mountaintop of her basketball career, her sexuality marred the moment. There is a very, very harmful culture running throughout the WNBA, she says, which saw her get bullied during her 8-year career because she is heterosexual. Wiggins, who last played in the league in 2015, says she retired prematurely to leave a league that she estimated wildly is 98% lesbian and which is played in such isolation that it weighs on the people on the court. There was a lot of jealousy and competition, and we're all fighting for crumbs, Wiggins said. The way I looked, the way I played, those things contributed to the tension. People were deliberately trying to hurt me all of the time. I had never been called the B word so many times in my life than I was in my rookie season. I'd never been thrown to the ground so much. The message was, we want you to know we don't like you. So how about that? Of all the reasons for someone to retire, and at the age of 30, mind you, having to retire because you're being bullied for your sexual orientation? There are literally jobs that cannot discriminate based on several factors, be it race, age, educational background, sexuality, religion. There are jobs that cannot discriminate, but clearly the WNBA is doing nothing about this, and unfortunately Candice Wiggins had to move on. And so I don't know if she's a Christian or not, but literally standing up for what she believed was right, as any level of Christian can attest to. There's going to be bullying, there's going to be mocking, there's going to be ridiculing, there's going to be discrimination. This case reminded me of that scripture, Matthew 5:11. God blesses you when people persecute you and mock you and say evil things about you. It certainly applies to this case right here. So I'm glad that she stood up for what was right, even if it meant costing her career. So anyway, that is an overall overview of the true agendas that are taking place in the world of sports. Like, yes, you may find enjoyment in watching sports, but it's all a part of the plan to dumb down the masses, to make us ignorant of what's really going on, who is really preparing to take over the world and instill their values in our society. Saw today how numerous sports leagues are promoting Satanism and Freemasonry and other connections to secret societies. So watch out. I don't know if this video convinces you to stop watching sports, but I hope it at least makes you more aware of what's really going on behind the scenes. So with that being said, I'll wrap it up for this video. Hope to see you all in the next one. Be vigilant, my friends.